Good evening. I'd like to call to order County Council's meeting for March 3rd, 2021. Will all please rise? We will pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, the first thing I will say is that we did have an executive session prior to this meeting where we talked about pending litigation and possible litigation. The next item calls for public comment, and just as a reminder, we accept public comment at the beginning of the meeting for all those items that are on tonight's agenda, and at the end of the meeting for any praise that you wish to shower upon council for any item that's of interest to you. We accept comment at public comment at co.delaware.pa.us, or you can call it into 610-891-4931. And we would remind folks to please give us your name and your address so it can be read into the record. And with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Taylor for the reading of the motions.
Mr. Chairman, we do have one public comment on a matter related to the agenda.
Oh, yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. This is from Margaret Kalachak, 411 9th Street, Upland, PA, and this relates to number 5, COVID vaccination update. Several links listed on the vaccine site do not work. Also, I try every site every day and cannot get scheduled for a vaccine. I filled out Crozier's form, county form, GoodRx form all weeks ago and never heard back. Who is helping us older people eligible in 1A to get vaccine before it goes into 1B? And that's the only comment.
Thank you, Mr. Martin.
Agenda item number 4, motion for approval of minutes of the regular meeting of February 17th, 2021.
Second.
Any questions or comments from council on the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Agenda item number 5 is a COVID and vaccination update. I believe we have Ms. Holt to present.
Yes. Hi, good evening. Thank you for having me today. Just wanted to begin today on a positive news that the county has all 4 of our vaccination sites operational this week. That includes our Aston Community Center, the Keystone Wellness Center in Chester, the Yaden Wellness Center, and our partners with Penn Medicine at Radnor. And we hope to have a 5th site online soon, and that would be at Springfield Hospital. We continue our planning for mass vaccination sites and our homebound and community vaccination teams, which are anxiously awaiting the J&J vaccine to implement those programs. I want to highlight that the good news is that our some of our allocation has increased from the state in that we're now receiving Pfizer vaccine. And so the Delco 2-week allocation that received from 223 to 233 is 9,110 doses of Pfizer and Moderna for 1st and 2nd doses. And these we anticipate being completely administered by 310. We have to follow the state's guidelines on particularly our 2nd doses. So that's why this is spread out over that time period. I also want to highlight the Governor Wolf's announcement today to vaccinate educators throughout Pennsylvania using the state's initial allocation of Johnson & Johnson vaccine. And it will be undertaken at the state level. In Delaware County, that would mean that that's utilizing our Delaware County Intermediate Unit, and they will be working with the state on that staffing and disbursement of vaccine through that system, and the county will be supporting as needed. Delaware County also has, I just want to report, 39,847 partially vaccinated and 34,564 fully vaccinated individuals. And that is for all vaccine providers in the county, not just the county allocation. We have a 4-week incidence rate for COVID of 234.72 per 100,000, with the most recent of 204.85 per 100,000, and a 4-week positivity of 9.66%, the most recent week of 8.81%, both of which are pointing in the right direction. We're going down, which is also another good news story. Vaccine allocations continue to be a stress point, and we're hoping to see some easement of that with the third vaccine online. And we're looking, and I remind people to make sure that they're continue to follow the guidelines, the mitigation strategies of masking, washing your hands, staying away from large crowds, and just still maintaining being cautious. We are nowhere ahead of this yet. We're working towards it, but the vaccine is the first step. We still need to do contact tracing, and we still encourage you to get testing. On that note, we will be opening it with the Pennsylvania Department of Health at our Upland site to continue testing next week for the next month. So we'll have additional information posted soon on our website. But if you are in need of testing, I encourage you to use that site. It is free, and we encourage anyone that might be concerned if they are positive to get tested as soon as possible. As a reminder, if you are exposed to COVID and you know that person is positive, you should wait 5 to 7 days from the initial exposure before getting tested using a PCR test. And I do want to encourage those, and I'm respectful of the earlier question that was presented by a resident, that if you have difficulty going online to make an appointment, we encourage you to try our Delaware County call center, which is 484-276-2100. Again, that's 484-276-2100. And they can assist you in trying to make an appointment at the county vaccination sites. There are many other providers in the county. And so unfortunately, the system is not centralized for making appointments. And I understand your frustration in trying to navigate making appointments on multiple sites. But we are working hard to get the vaccine out as quickly as possible and to ensure particularly our over 65 residents are getting vaccinated. And I do encourage you to also look at our website, and it will have updated information every week on the website, and it'll be new and improved soon, which is very exciting. And just as a reminder, we are hoping to continue to reach out to our communities. And so as we particularly work to get our homebound population vaccinated, we encourage you, if you have concerns, to also call the call center so we can help you get vaccine if you need it. But again, reminder that the vaccine is very limited right now. But we hope, as the spring progresses, that more vaccine supply will mean that we can get out into the communities, especially for our high-risk populations. So at this time, I would like to have Dr. Lisa O'Mahony do our update from as our health advisor to the county.
Thanks, Rose. Good evening, everyone. As you all may know, as of March 1st, the Wolf administration has lifted out-of-state travel restrictions. So it's no longer necessary to quarantine or test when entering the Commonwealth from out of state. So this is going to have some big impact, especially, with our employees and certainly at our testing sites and all the questioning that's been going on. At this point, there's not going to be the need to quarantine or test. This revision is based on the current downward trend of cases nationwide and the testing requirements of transportation employees and the universal masking on public transportation, which has all reduced the risk of interstate travel. Additionally, there's a little bit of lifting with indoor events that now will allow 15% of maximum occupancy, and outdoor events will allow 20% maximum occupancy. And this is regardless of venue size. And certainly it means that we still have to maintain the 6-foot social distancing, continued masking, hand washing. So this is just a limited mitigation lift, but because of numbers, we're able to do this. Evolving data has allowed this, including that 14% of Pennsylvanians have received at least one dose of vaccine. The percent positivity at this point in Pennsylvania is 6.3%, and the incidence per 100,000 is standing at 101.3, and this is over the past 7 days in the Commonwealth. So again, this is a limited loosening of mitigation efforts while recognizing that we need to maintain vigilance as new cases of variants continue to appear and experts warn of a possibility of a fourth surge in cases. So we're certainly not out of the woods, but things are looking like they are improving. And then finally, I just want to extend reassurance to all those whose second vaccines have been delayed. The CDC guidance states that the second dose should be administered as close to the recommended interval as possible, but the shot will still be effective if there is a short delay in getting the second dose. And we certainly are making every effort to get the second dose delivered in the 42-day window recommended. So there's no need to restart the vaccination series if the second dose has to be delayed, and be assured that antibody protection will still be achieved. So, this is happening with lots of second doses finally being accomplished this week, which is very exciting. We feel like we're getting some closure for those people who were on tenterhooks, and they're all so appreciative that their series is completed, and we're excited to start first vaccines again with new supply. So thank you.
Thank you. I guess for my part, I would just offer that there was quite a bit of news made earlier this week with regard to an Inquirer report and one on ABC News that outlined their position that Delaware County and, in fact, all of the counties around Philadelphia have been getting shortchanged, have been getting less vaccine than others. And this is a complaint that I know all of council has made repeatedly to the Department of Health, and that we have had numerous conversations with our state representatives, our state senators, and we know they are making that same argument to the Department of Health. At various times, the Department of Health seems to sort of acquiesce to the fact that perhaps we haven't gotten our fair share, and then later they will backtrack and say, well, no, you have gotten your fair share. So it's still not entirely clear from my perspective what their position is. We do have a telephone call with them and all of the, as I understand it, all of the state delegations for all the surrounding counties and the commissioners at 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon with the Department of Health. And they're going to lay out a presentation of sorts to us that will outline their position as to whether or not Delaware County has been getting its fair share or not. So we will update folks as we learn more. And I just wanted folks to know that we have been and will continue to fight to try to make sure that Delaware County gets its fair share of vaccines so that our residents can get vaccinated as soon as possible. Any other questions or comments from council? All right, well, thank you both very much. I know everybody's working really hard and we really appreciate it. We do get the occasional positive email from folks who have had the experience of having gotten vaccinated, and they're universally appreciative of the professionalism and good organization at the various vaccination sites. So please extend our appreciation to everybody who's working so hard. Thank you.
Yeah, and I will usually not just repeat what Brian said, but it really does bear repeating. We get lots and lots of complaints about the shortage of vaccines, which we obviously share the frustration, but we get maybe not quite as many, but we get a lot of people who reach out and appreciate the team for the professionalism with which these sites have been run. So Rosemarie and team, thank you again for all you're doing there. I think it shouldn't get lost in the frustration over vaccine volumes.
Well, I want to take a moment to also really, really thank our Citizen Corps and Medical Reserve Corps. We had 475 people volunteer this week to help give out vaccines. And they're all our fellow residents who are really stepping up and helping to save the county a lot of money. For every step, for every one of them, that volunteers, we don't have to hire contractors or other staff to do it. And so we would be lost without them. And they've been doing an amazing job. So thanks.
Let's hope they have some stamina to last through the summer.
Thank you. If that's all there is on agenda item number 5, Mr. Madden? Oh, I think you're on mute still.
I never am guilty of that until right now. So sorry, I'm now off mute. We had an item that we'd like to add to the agenda, and apologies, I got caught a little flat-footed here. I would like to make a motion, and bear with me, it's a rather long motion, but it relates to our ability to vaccinate. So this seems like the right point in time to do so. And
so your motion is to amend the agenda then?
My motion is to amend the agenda, and it is to, sorry, Brian, does anyone else have it? I mean, I don't have to be the one that's amending it.
I have it up.
Yeah. Go ahead, Monica, if you have it.
I would like to make a motion to amend the agenda to authorize the executive director to enter into a memorandum of understanding with Prospect CCMC LLC, DBA Springfield Hospital, to utilize space on the Springfield Hospital campus to operate a COVID-19 vaccination clinic and to provide staff for the purposes of daily operations to include clinic setup and breakdown, patient registration, and Pennsylvania database input, and to provide vaccine and vaccination administrative supplies such as needles and syringes to be utilized at such vaccination clinic for a period not to exceed an initial period of 3 months, renewable on a monthly basis at the discretion of the executive director for a total period not to exceed 6 months and a total cost not to exceed $300,000. Funding is authorized from the budget line that has been established to provide for the county's vaccination program. A copy of the agreement is attached and subject to solicitor's approval.
If I couldn't make the motion, then I'll at least second it.
All right, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments on the motion to amend the agenda? All right, hearing none, all those in favor of amending the agenda signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. All right, so the agenda is now amended. Would somebody care to actually make the motion then?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Anybody care to offer any questions or comments about this?
Can we get detail about the staffing? I didn't quite get that from the motion.
Is it okay if I respond, Brian? Okay.
Yes, please.
So the staffing would be provided by Crozier. Specifically, the staffing would be the medical staff that we need to do the vaccinations, observation, and other clinical needs on site. They would also provide pharmacy services in order to reconstitute. We'll be using Pfizer vaccine there, so we need pharmacy services to reconstitute and to store the vaccine.
So what will we be required to make this work? What will we need to provide?
So Delaware County would be providing our logistical support. So line management, supporting the site. We'll have a site manager there. And we will also be assisting with the registration process, as well as assisting if needed with data entry for the PASYS system.
And are we, is the agreement that we have with the other hospital system, have this type of price tag with it? or is this different?
So it is a different type of MOU that we'd have with the other health system at Penn Medicine. And that agreement was different in that we had the vaccine. Penn Medicine is assisting us with this site and with some medical support as well. But we are also assisting them with vaccinating their patients, where this site would be at primarily a Delaware County site.
Okay, my last question, in addition to the fee that we're paying for this support, which I have nothing against, are they also going to be billing for these doses or recouping insurance?
That part I might have to refer to the solicitor to know if that was fully included in an MOU. But from my perspective, that was not my understanding.
That was not spoken to in their draft of the MOU. It's something we need to get more information on.
Okay, all right.
I just offer my 2 cents, which is I know we add things to the agenda extremely sparingly on the day of a council meeting because, we want to make sure that the public has as much time as possible to be aware. I think in this case, folks will understand the urgency of getting our public vaccinated. And my understanding is the reason for this particular facility being so important is that we can utilize it for providing the Pfizer vaccine. And there may be more availability with Pfizer than there is with Moderna right now, or J&J. And so, I think this MOU came over from Crozier literally late last night. And we did not want to see there be another 2-week delay if we could get this thing moving. So I think, there are times and places for making an exception and getting things moving forward through the cogs of government as quickly as possible. And I think this is really one of them. So I'm supportive of this. I will say, Mr. Martin, I'm not sure if you want to chime in here. I always want to make sure that given the virtual nature of our meetings right now, is there some thought to perhaps we have a deliberation here, but we don't actually vote until the tail end of the meeting so that if there's members of the public who are watching this and would like to provide comment, that we allow that to occur? Because I think if we ask for public comment now, the reality is, that's a pretty tight time frame for someone to hear about this and send in an email or whatever. Do you have a thought?
It's obviously for the judgment of council, but you could complete your discussion of the item here and defer vote until the back end of the agenda, and then take a look to see whether there are public comments on this particular item and read them.
I think just from a belts and suspenders perspective on public input, I'd welcome that if other members of council do.
I don't have an issue with that as long as Ms. Coogan will promise to remind us to bring it back up again. Thank you. Others on council, any other thoughts on that?
I have a, oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Ms. Phillips, please.
I have 2 questions, but it wasn't about where you voted, so. That's
okay. Well, I think we should talk about the substance now too, so that when we do vote on it, we have that other way.
My question was, if it's subject to solicitor's approval, I understand that, but are there terms that need to be negotiated? Because I think Ms. Schaefer brought up a really good point about insurance. I'm just wondering whether that's who's negotiated the terms of it, or if you're satisfied with that. And the other thing was just a point that it seemed to be dated for today, and there is a lease component to this. And I just asked that it not be dated until it's actually signed and approved, and that's the date of the agreement. So those are my 2 points.
I could jump in. As Ms. Phillips reminded me earlier today, we do need to address the start date to match the date where we actually sign the agreement. So I agree with that. And speaking with Ms. Halt, I think the pricing considering that it's all inclusive, is something that she felt comfortable with, and I'll let Rosemary talk about that as well. And certainly any reimbursements that are received by the contractor as defined under the agreement ought to be addressed as a discount to the cost.
As was indicated, the MOU came into our offices last evening. And I think Mr. Lichtenstein had a short period of time to look at it. He'll look at it in a little bit more depth, and we will work on it tomorrow and Friday and expedite resolution of any open issues.
And then I would just speak, sorry.
No, that's okay. I'll you first and then I'll go after.
I just wanted to answer Howard's question. So I do want to point out that in our other vaccination sites that we do contract with contracted nurses. And so there is a fee that we're already paying at other sites. So while, it's a different agreement with Penn Medicine, our own vaccination sites, we are contracting nurses to provide those services. So that would not be an unusual request for payment on that. And then I do want to point out that Springfield Hospital, that particular location, we felt was a very positive location. It's central into the county. It has access to public transit, and it has plenty of parking, and the logistics of running that operation is very favorable. And there is not that many large sites that we can choose from as well in the county. So I do want to point those two pieces out. And then Howard, was I missing some other point that I needed to cover?
No, I did well. Thank you.
Okay.
Can I just ask one other question? Because Brian, or do you want to go first?
That's okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I know in some of our earlier discussions, there'd been a question, and I know this is an up to 6 months term. So I'm assuming that there will be provisions, if there aren't now, Mr. Martin, there will be provisions that allow the county to terminate this early. And I'm only saying because this vaccination process has been changing so rapidly, like, the state suddenly announcing they're going to be running PEMA sites for teachers today, which is awesome, but it's not like we had a huge amount of advance notice on it. It could get to the point where there are a sufficient number of federal sites or vaccine has ramped up that we don't need this. And it is not an inexpensive proposition. So there will be an ability to terminate it early, I assume, right? If that's the case.
I think the current draft provides for a 3-month commitment and month-to-month thereafter to a maximum of 6. Understand your point, and it's something we'll have to discuss with Prospect.
The agreement does provide a 30-day notice provision for cancellation. I sent that forward just because there's still a lot of uncertainty involved as to how vaccines going to be distributed. And if we're looking at as much as 250,000 to 300,000 people, even as vaccine becomes available, it's going to still take some time to stick needles in everyone. So 3 months was what Rosemary and I talked about, and then being a little conservative, I just added the month to month at the end of it in the event that something happens.
So I guess for my 2 cents, I'd like to offer a couple of sort of clarifying points. One, when the county set up its sites initially in Aston and in Yeadon, and then later in Chester, we always intended to deliver Moderna vaccine there. We did not have the cold freezers that would need to be kept so cold for Pfizer. If you may recall from reading in the news that the Pfizer vaccine has to be kept at extremely low temperatures. I know there's some discussion that maybe it's not needed right now, but I think the current thinking is it still has to be kept that cold. That's one element. Another element, as Ms. Holt has explained to us, is that the vaccine needs to be reconstituted in some form, which I don't know how to do, but I know that we don't have the equipment in Delaware County to reconstitute a Pfizer vaccine. And so these sites at Springfield and at Radnor would allow us to both keep them at the extremely cold temperatures and to reconstitute the vaccine. And that's why they are important for us to open up. When Moderna became so scarce a few weeks ago, and the state said, hey, people gave out too much of the first dose, there's not enough, and Moderna's a little slow shipping, a new focus was placed upon Pfizer. And one of the reasons why, in addition to its central location, that Springfield was attractive to us is because there's only so much Pfizer that we could handle at the Radnor facility. I think that we can handle something like 2,340 doses a week there. But if we were able to get another tray, each one of which is 1,170 doses, if we're able to get another tray, we would not be able to handle it at Radnor. So having yet another site would allow us to deliver more vaccine to Delaware County citizens. And I'm at least as cheap as the next guy. But to my way of thinking, spending $44,000 to get our citizens vaccinated is money well spent. And not only will it help to keep our citizens safe, and I know we talked about how the numbers were improving, and they are, but we also announced 11 new deaths today. So let's not lose sight of the fact that we are still losing Delaware County citizens. So please wear your darn mask. And it just also points to the need that we have to vaccinate people as quickly as possible. So, while I wouldn't say we have a blank check on this, I would say this is money that we should invest in the safety of our citizens.
I have just one clarifying question about the vaccine supply to this site. Is, as I understand it, it's going to be Crozier's supply of Pfizer that we're administering. Can we also add on to that any Pfizer supply that we get? And could this help increase our allotment?
Yes, we'd have to make that part of the agreement, that we would be doing that. And then we'd have to notify the state for in some capacity if we were receiving supplies there. Similar to what we're doing with Penn Medicine. The delivery for the county would go directly to Springfield Hospital.
Okay.
And Lori, if I'm saying that incorrectly, because Lori is our master order of vaccines.
Correct. That is correct.
I mean, that right there is worth its weight in gold in, giving us more leverage to get more doses now, in the next month. So thanks.
All right. Any other questions or comments on the substance of the motion before us? If we do want to vote later, I think it would be appropriate to table this, if I'm not wrong, Mr. Martin, albeit on a very short table, but we would still need to table it.
Motion to table.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of tabling this until the end of this meeting, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. And then I will just remind the public, please, if you do have comments about this MOU, please send them in and we will look for them before voting on this agenda item at the end of the meeting. All right. Well, I think we can bid adieu to Ms. Halt and Dr. O'Mahony if she's still here. And thank you guys. And we'll move on to agenda item number 6.
All right. Agenda item number 6 is a motion for approval of a resolution declaring March as Women's History Month.
Second.
Thank you. And I believe we have, I don't know, Dr. Taylor, are you presenting this?
Yes. March is National Women's History Month, a time we set aside to commemorate and encourage the study, observance, and celebration of the vital role of women in American history. Women's History Month began as a local celebration in Santa Rosa, California in 1978, and the movement spread across the country as other communities initiated their own Women's History Week celebrations the following year and for years after. The theme for this year's Women's History Month is Valiant Women of the Vote, Refusing to be Silenced, which was created to capture the spirit of these challenging times. Women have led the efforts to secure suffrage and equal opportunity for women and have served in the abolitionist movement, the emancipation movement, labor movement, civil rights movement, and all other causes to create a more fair and just society for all. For the first time in history, a woman is the Vice President of the United States. Vice President Kamala Harris was sworn into office as the very first female vice president on January 20th. I am also proud to have been a part of history last year. In 2020, I was sworn into office with my 2 other female colleagues who were elected to Delaware County Council. For the first time in recorded history, 3 of the 5 members of County Council are women. That is absolutely incredible to be a part of. This month, we celebrate the women across the nation and here in Delaware County who struggle and sacrifice to guarantee freedom and rights for themselves, fellow females, their daughters and granddaughters, and future generations. These exceptional women are artists, scientists, educators, business leaders, influential thinkers, members of the faith community, athletes, and political and governmental leaders. They reflect the greatness of our country. Delaware County is fortunate to have numerous members of the community and organizations who work to educate, celebrate, empower, and promote female leaders in our community and throughout history. Joining us tonight to help us declare March as Women's History Month are 2 incredible women who have made impactful changes in our community. Joining us are Julie Avalos, Executive Director of the Domestic Abuse Project, and Lori Grant, Executive Director of the Delaware County Historic Society. County Council is proud to recognize the accomplishments of these 2 women and the organizations they serve. I'd invite each of you to tell us more about your organization. I'll start with Julie Avalos. Ms. Avalos?
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Julie. I'm the Executive Director of the Domestic Abuse Project of Delaware County, and I thank Council for inviting DAP to be here in honor of Women's History Month. The Domestic Abuse Project is proud to serve thousands of women a year as they march and really thrive through their own stories of survival, resiliency, tenacity, and strength as they come out of not being silent anymore, as being victimized by their intimate partner and being victims of domestic violence. DAP's mission is to empower domestic violence survivors to move towards self-sufficiency. And the majority of those that we serve are women who refuse to be silent anymore. And we are honored to do this through a continuum of services that we provide right here in Delaware County that include a 24-hour hotline that is a crisis response hotline where a counselor will provide services to you at any hour of the day. We have a safe house shelter that we run in Delaware County that houses women and children, along with other housing support services, really to help individuals create that lifeline of self-sufficiency and support for themselves. We're proud to have attorney representation that provides free representation to victims of domestic violence as they navigate through the protection from abuse order, as well as having court advocates that walk hand in hand with victims through both the criminal and the civil court process. Lastly, we have education, outreach, and awareness, really empowering communities to understand what violence against women means for individuals, for communities, for our children, and for the long time and long-term resiliency of our communities as a whole. So again, I thank Council for having us here tonight. We are proud to be part of this movement, proud to be here on Women's History Month, and really encourage if anyone wants to learn more about our organization. Our website is www.dapdc.org. Look us up and find ways to get involved, and we'd love to have you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Avalos. And now I'll have Ms. Lori Grant.
Hi, how are you? Thank you, council members, and congratulations to the 3 new council women. And I applaud your work. And Christine, I love your backdrop, by the way. It rocks. As the executive director of the Delaware County Historical Society, if not for the women in our history, you would not be in the positions you're in now. So, we at the Delaware County Historical Society want to bring to light the heroic efforts of the women in our history. 2020 was the 100th anniversary of the women's right to vote, the 19th Amendment. It was a century-long fight to get that right to vote. DCHS, Delaware County Historical Society, was not able to properly recognize the anniversary of the 19th Amendment due to the pandemic, and we're just sort of catching on to this virtual event stuff. And so we are hosting an event for Women's History Month, and we will be taking our audience through a journey for the journey for equal rights for women. As I said, the 19th Amendment was passed in 1920. Here we are in 2021, and thank goodness we do have our first female vice president, African-American female vice president, and that thrills me. That said, we still do not have an amendment to the Constitution giving women equal rights. We have the right to vote, but we do not have equal rights. And we started our first event last month in Black History Month to bring to light the civil rights and de facto segregation going on in Chester in 63 and 64. And the 60s were a very significant time period for various causes, civil rights, ERA, and the Vietnam War. So coming off the high of our last events on civil rights, we're now going into women's rights. You would think that almost 250 years after the Constitution was written that women would have equal rights. This is a timely conversation because it was just last month that Virginia became the 38th state to ratify equal rights. And with 38 states, we should be able to pass an amendment for women's equal rights. That said, ERA, the equality of rights under the law, shall not be denied or abridged by the U.S. or by any state on account of sex, has been languishing in Congress since 1923, which is all pretty amazing to me. We will be highlighting some of the women instrumental in the suffrage movement, and that will be some of our local heroes like Alice Paul, a suffragette who dedicated her life's work for women's rights and was a key figure in getting the 19th Amendment passed, and later advocated for the passage of an Equal Rights Amendment as well. Alice Paul attended Swarthmore College, so she was a Delaware County resident, and was co-founder of the National Women's Party. She fought just as hard as some of the civil rights and Vietnam protesters. She ended up in jail. She went on hunger strikes. So we applaud the work that she did, our ancestors did, and allow for 3 council women today. We do have an exhibit featured right now at the Historical Society, and it features original letters from the National Women's Suffrage Association, numerous pictures, information on some of the key figures from that time period. And one of my favorites is an actual invitation, an original invitation to one of the meetings of the National Women's Suffrage Association, which has printed on it, "Everyone welcome," and then in all caps, especially the men. So I found that pretty amusing. But I think it's a timely event. We hope to get a couple of judges, one from Delaware County and one who is very active in constitutional law in Delaware. And I've actually spoken with some of my colleagues from Delaware law who work in constitutional law, and we're hoping to get some of the 3 of the 4 people that were instrumental in having Delaware ratify equal rights for women. So we're excited to once again bring to light some of the tough issues that we're still marching on, and it's fun work, and we hope it helps.
Thank you. And thank you both for the update on everything that you're doing. And thank you for all each of you are doing and your organizations are doing for our community. You know, Delaware County residents really appreciate everything.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you both. Dr. Taylor, you want to move on to agenda item number 7 then? Or do we have to vote for, I guess we're voting on passing the resolution, are we? Okay, I dare anybody to vote against it. So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We do. All right. All those in favor of resolution declaring March as Women's History Month, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. All right. Well earned. Thank you both.
All right, agenda item number 7 is a motion for approval of a resolution declaring March as Red Cross Month.
I will second that.
Motion is second. Dr. Taylor, I think Ms. Ruther is presenting this, is she? Or Ms. Schaefer?
Ms. Schaefer.
I am.
Ms. Schaefer, okay.
Yes, I am.
Caught me by surprise there.
All right.
Well, March is American Red Cross Month, a time dedicated to honoring the kindness of our community members who aid families in need every day in Delaware County, across the United States and around the world. Their dedication touches millions of lives each year as they carry out the organization's 140-year mission of preventing and alleviating suffering. During the trying times of COVID-19, many people have stepped up to help others in need by responding to record-breaking disasters across the country or rolling up their sleeves to give blood when our country faced a severe blood shortage. Here in Delaware County, local families have relied on American Red Cross of Southeastern Pennsylvania volunteers for comfort and hope while coping with house fires, severe storms, and hurricanes. In 2020, American Red Cross volunteers helped 124 Delaware County families with emergency assistance after a disaster, providing support to 357 county residents for their urgent needs, such as food and lodging and recovery support. And last year, despite the COVID-19 pandemic, the American Red Cross of Southeastern Pennsylvania collected 16,130 units of blood at area blood drives and distributed the blood to save lives at our local hospitals. This life-saving work is vital to strengthening our community's resilience, and we dedicate the month of March to those who continue to advance the mission of the American Red Cross founder, Clara Barton, another strong woman. Delaware County Council is honored to declare March as American Red Cross Month in Delaware County, and we commend the staff and volunteers who work each day to provide comfort and hope to our residents in need. And joining us tonight is Guy Triano, the CEO of the Southeastern Pennsylvania Regional Chapter of the American Red Cross. And I'd love to welcome Guy and to invite him to speak a little bit more and say a few words about the incredible work that the Red Cross does and how our community can support them.
Well, thank you, Council. We appreciate it, and certainly thank you for that opportunity today. As you mentioned, I'm Guy Triano, the proud CEO for the Southeastern Pennsylvania, the American Red Cross, and how fitting and perfect we followed the wonderful women's rights that's going on this month with Red Cross Month and how the two work out one another. For almost 80 years, the President of the United States has proclaimed March as Red Cross Month to honor individuals and to provide help and hope for those in the life-saving mission. And Clara Barton, a strong woman who formed the American Red Cross, how fitting, and our current CEO of the National Red Cross, Gail McGovern, another strong and powerful woman, helped put this together and continue to fill the mission each and every day. We're thankful for the partnerships throughout Delaware County, and we collectively work together and will continue to be in the communities each and every day to serve individuals. On top of certainly the life-saving missions and the families that we've assisted and all of the blood that we've collected throughout the year, we were certainly there for Hurricane Isaias, and we will be there each and every day for the American Red Cross. So thank you very much for the opportunity. We appreciate the time and certainly remembering the American Red Cross during this wonderful time.
Thank you for all that you do. And to all of our residents, never pass up the opportunity to donate blood.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments from council on agenda item number 7? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 8, motion for approval of a resolution recognizing police and fire dispatchers for their heroic efforts during a February 17th fire in Melbourne.
Second.
Motion and a second. I believe Mr. Madden is going to be delivering this.
Thank you, Brian. As we well know, Delaware County is fortunate to have many dedicated citizens who generously contribute their time, their energy, and their resources to enhance the dignity, safety, and quality of life for their neighbors and communities. Delaware County first responders and dispatchers are called upon and relied on to keep the residents of Delaware County safe, and each day they answer the call, often risking their own personal safety. On February 17th, the Delaware County 911 Center received reports of a large commercial fire in Melbourne Borough, where a resident was reported to be trapped in the building. 911 call taker Amy Flomer received the call from the trapped resident who was in distress and overcome with the intense smoke conditions, and was able to calmly direct the resident and determine the location of the woman. Using advanced technology, fire dispatchers James Colbrenner, Marlana Dreyer, and Joshua Ewing were able to relay the location of the resident to firefighters, police, and EMS on scene in real time, and police dispatchers Joe Doherty and Robert Cramphorn directed police officers in their attempt to locate the victim and make additional evacuations. The extraordinary actions of the police officers and firefighters on scene and the men and women of Delaware County Emergency Services whose training, equipment, and above all professionalism contributed on this day to saving lives. Several of those heroes are joining us tonight. We commend you and are honored to present each of you with a resolution recognizing your efforts and your service to the community. So at this time, I'd like to invite our Emergency Services Director, Tim Boyce, to introduce the dispatchers and offer his recognition as well. Tim?
Well, thank you, Mr. Madden. And as I often say, Delaware County handles nearly 1 million calls for service, and every one of them is important. For us to come forward with an extraordinary call like this, really a testament to the men and women who work here. To say that this was a dramatic call, this person was 11 minutes trapped in a fire, unable to get help. And the team you see before you put together an enormous effort to rescue this person and communicate with their firefighters and police officer. So I do see Ms. Flomer's on the call. She is one of the operators who spent most time with the call. Marlena Dwyer, a senior fire dispatcher, managed the event. And Jim Colbrenner also connected on the call. That's technology. I'm often here asking for money and grants, but that technology was just added for allow us to patch these calls in together. So that's a credit to everyone here to get it done. It also, Josh Ewing's on the call. This was a second alarm event, a major fire. And our police dispatchers on the call, Robert Cramphorn and Mr. Doherty, says Stacy, Doherty, that's Joe. They're on the call. It really was a team effort, and I think, thankfully, this person survived. But it's a credit to the training and the professionalism and the compassion that they always show. So I just wanted to, how proud I am of everybody on the team.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Boyce, and thank you to all involved in this, this heroic effort. Any questions or comments from council?
I just want to say a resounding thank you for your service. When you need 911, you need 911. And it is really comforting to know that we have such professionals answering the phone, coordinating the help, and that when our residents need you, you're going to be there. So thank you.
Well said. All right, if there's nothing further then, all those in favor of agenda item number 8, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Congratulations, everyone. Thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Agenda item number 9, motion for approval to submit grant application to the Pennsylvania Auto Theft Prevention Authority for a 2-year renewal in the amount of $672,491, subject to solicitor's approval.
Second.
Thank you. We have Mr. Solstheimer here to present this. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. I'm a lot less heroic than the people you just had that I'm following, but I do appreciate your time tonight. We're going to ask for your approval to submit a grant to the Auto Theft Prevention Authority of Pennsylvania. $600,000 will be covering 3 salaries in that unit in CID for the next 2 years. We've had this grant since 1997, and the people at the authority are very pleased with the work, as am I, of the people who work for me downstairs who do this work. Just so you know, in the last 2-year period when we had this same grant, we recovered over 1,400 stolen vehicles here in Delaware County. So this team does a fantastic job. If you allow us to continue to do this work, we will be able to bring this money to Delaware County and to continue to try to stop people from stealing cars from our residents.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council?
No, but I figured, Brian, this would be the moment where if our district attorney is a hero in anyone's minds, it would be an insurance broker. So
God bless him. He's doing God's work here. I appreciate that, Jack.
Thank you, sir.
I just want to say I very much appreciate the great skill of the district attorney's office in finding money to support tasks that benefit the residents of Delaware County. So, and if you've got any hints, send them my way.
Yes, ma'am. Happy to.
All right. If there's nothing further, then all those in favor of agenda item number 9, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Good evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Council. I appreciate it.
Agenda item number 10, we have the Delaware County, the $5 vehicle registration fee update.
Thanks. We have Mr. Bierling with us this evening to present this. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Evening, members of council. I'm here today to ask for the approval. I lost you.
we're here.
We're here.
Okay.
You're just giving us an update on the vehicle registration.
Yes,
Yep.
yes. Delaware County $5 vehicle registration fee update. On February 19, 2020, Delaware County Council passed an ordinance related to a provision of the Commonwealth's 2013 Transportation Funding Law, Act 89, which authorizes counties to add $5 to each of the annual PennDOT vehicle registration to fund critical county infrastructures. Starting June 1, 2020, the money can only be used in the maintenance and improvements of roads, bridges, and related items. The funding will be used to improve the county's own inventory of 43 bridges, which citizens traverse on a regular basis. Delaware County is the 25th county to pass the ordinance enacted this provision, which has also been passed by neighboring counties of Bucks County, Chester County, Montgomery County, Philadelphia County. The main benefits of the new registration fee creates a steady stream of transportation funding fundraised by those who use the system and keep it entirely within Delaware County. State law restricts the funds to roads, bridges, signal projects, decreases the county's dependence on state/federal programs that we have been relying on as an opportunity to obtain these dollars become harder to obtain, provided a dedicated revenue source. The county has been working diligently to prioritize its bridge inventory. Over the last several months, as a result, the county is now ready to request a $2 million transportation funding reserve for enacting the $5 registration fee. A letter requesting the approval of a project to PennDOT has been drafted and will be sent to them for the approval shortly. It's currently under review by the planning department. At the end of 2020, the county had collected $830,650. Is working to prioritize projects to utilize these funds. The county has committed to set aside some of the monies to maintain the signage along the bicycle track on Baltimore Pike. And from what I understand from Mr. Schaefer, I think some of these signs have been taken down or destroyed, and PennDOT hasn't been replacing them. So that's something that we would do out of this fund also. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to just highlight a couple things that Jack mentioned in there.
Sure.
And the first is we were the last of the 5 counties of southeastern Pennsylvania to adopt this ordinance. And the reason for its importance is as vehicles become more efficient, as a lot of our and I say our Pennsylvania's and really nationally, a lot of the traditional means of funding our infrastructure are getting tougher in the form of fuel taxes, et cetera. It's important that we start to think creatively about how we can raise the necessary funding to keep our roads and bridges in good shape. And so this was a, $5 a year. It's the equivalent of maybe a cup of coffee per month. That's an investment by each of us who owns a vehicle to essentially sort of do maintenance to our vehicle in the form of better roadways that we can't ourselves do. That's where we have to rely upon government to make sure that our roads and bridges are in good shape. So, I think what $5 a year for every vehicle in Delaware County equates to is about $2 million in total per year. Jack mentioned about $800,000 received for 2020. And the reason why that it seems below that $2 million sort of trajectory for half a year is that, as we all know, 2020 was a strange year. And one element of that strangeness is that a lot of people took advantage of Pennsylvania's allowance on vehicle registration. So there weren't as many vehicles being re-registered in 2020. But, make no mistake, we are sort of looking at about a $2 million a year pot that we can utilize. And the other thing to mention, I'm not sure if Jack mentioned this, is PennDOT, in the interest of encouraging counties to adopt this program to invest in their bridges, they gave a matching contribution of $2 million. And that was a program that actually expired a few years ago. But our friends at PennDOT made an exception for Delaware County because they wanted to see us join our colleagues who had adopted it. And so we're receiving $2 million of additional cash in the form of another project that we can add to the improvements plan by PennDOT. So, again, when we can spend $1 and receive $2 for it, it's money well spent by Delaware County. So that's all I'd really highlight. I think it's on schedule so far. The first 6 months I think have gone well, and I hope to see more projects that we can point to this fee that is the result of it.
I would just like to acknowledge all the work that our colleague, Councilman Madden, put into this and bird dogging this. And, last year when the 3 new council members came on board, time was really of the essence. And Councilman Madden really educated us quickly and bird dogged this and persevered to make sure that we passed this so that we didn't forego the $2 million match. And now it's clear how important it is as Act 89 funds diminish and transportation needs increase. So I just want to acknowledge that, we really appreciate that you bird dogged us and that it has set us up in such a good position. So thank you.
Thanks.
I would like to echo those sentiments because he did spearhead this. He's the one who went and got that $2 million. We weren't sure if we were going to get it or not. And he worked diligently on it, and I applaud him for that.
Here. And I think you may have said it tonight, or maybe it was yesterday too, that these monies, the registration fees we collect and the matching monies that come from PennDOT, they're not to be used on just anything, right? I mean, it's not like county council could go out and buy pizzas for everybody with it. We are limited in its use to improving our infrastructure. Have I got that right?
Very much so, sir. It's written out and everything's got to be T's crossed and I's dotted on where we're actually using that money. Yes.
Specifically bridges and roads.
Yes.
And related items.
Okay. I know there's been I have gotten some questions previously from people kind of confused about, how this money is going to be spent. So I just wanted to make sure that to the extent people are listening, that was clear.
Yeah,
Sure.
and also worth highlighting that literally 100% of it comes back to Delaware County. There's no, Harrisburg doesn't keep some portion of it. It's 100 cents on the dollar comes back to Delco.
All right, thank you. Any other comments on agenda item number 10? All right, I don't think this calls for a vote, so we'll move on to agenda item number 11, Dr. Taylor.
Agenda item number 11, motion for approval of reimbursement agreement NOR 21060007 between the County of Delaware and PennDOT, establishing maximum reimbursement of $3,718,395 for construction phase required for New Avenue Bridge over Chester Creek replacement, subject to solicitor's approval.
Second.
Mr. Beering, it looks like you're going to tell us how we're going to spend all of our money.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of council. I'm here to ask for the approval of reimbursement agreement number R21060007 between the County of Delaware and PennDOT, 700 East Boulevard, King of Prussia, 19046, subject to solicitor's approval. Establishing a maximum reimbursement at $3,718,395 for the construction phase required for New Avenue Bridge over Chester Creek replacement, County Bridge number 7. This bridge number 7 is located in Aston Township on New Road. The bridge is 54 feet in length and 24 feet in width. It was built in 1931. The total cost for this bridge is 80% federal funds, which would be $3,479,920. 15% state funds, which would be $652,350. 5% liquid fuels that we receive from the state that we have in our coffers is $217,450 for a total of $4,349,000. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on agenda item number 11? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Mr. Beerling.
Thank you, sir.
Agenda item number 12, motion for approval of agreements, contracts, and amendments with the Services for the Aging providers of services as per the attached list, subject to solicitor's approval.
Second.
Thank you. Ms. Nicolardi is here to present this item. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of council. I'm here today to request budget amendments for 7 program-funded contracts. Our contract and fiscal year runs from July through June, and these amendments are for this current contract period. COSA has unanticipated excess block grant funds due to receiving FFCRA and CARES funding for this fiscal year. As such, these one-time expenditures are able to be funded through our block grant funds. Additionally, each of the 8 COSA-sponsored senior centers are receiving $4,938 from the Pennsylvania Department of Aging, with the funds coming through COSA to those centers. Specific budget modifications include $28,000 to Marikey for mental health counseling. Marikey has requested the funds due to not being able to bill third-party providers for counseling that they have provided, primarily because they have an MSW providing the counseling rather than an LCSW. Counseling this past year has been a valued resource for our seniors, and they've been able to provide this at home through telephone visits. $5,000 to Senior Community Services for the Prize Health Insurance Counseling Program. The funding is to be used to cover costs to purchase additional equipment such as cell phones, cell plans, and hotspots for the volunteers to provide health insurance counseling remotely. This program helps seniors with Medicare and insurance issues and has been able to provide services virtually and over the phone. $25,000 to Senior Community Services to eliminate the waiting list of COSA consumers needing various equipment and supplies, such as stair glides and personal emergency response systems. $53,938 to Mainline Senior Services for the Wayne Senior Center to renovate their office, purchase a commercial freezer, upgrade their signage, purchase iPads, tablets, and hotspots, and various programming materials to continue to provide virtual and when able outdoor programming. $183,912 to Senior Community Services for their 4 senior centers: the Chester Senior Center, the Good Neighbor Senior Center, the Friendship Circle Senior Center, and the Schoolhouse Senior Center. Money will be used to provide one-time upgrades to each of the senior centers. $72,600 of that money is going to pay home-delivered meal drivers. Prior to the pandemic, we had volunteers delivering meals to our seniors, but with the pandemic and keeping the seniors safe and the volunteers safe, we realized very quickly that we would need to hire staff to make sure this was happening on a regular and consistent basis. $46,668 to Surrey Services for Seniors for their senior centers in Media and Havertown. In addition to a new commercial freezer and portable screens, the majority of their funding has been requested to develop a Surrey virtual campus that will continue to operate after the pandemic, reaching additional seniors who will choose to stay home or are homebound. And $17,279 to Upper Darby Township for the Upper Darby Senior Center to purchase a new freezer, upgrade their reception desk, making it handicapped accessible, and webcams and laptops for virtual programming. And that's everything.
Thank you, Ms. Nicolardi. Any questions or comments from council?
Well, I would just like to say I'm familiar with some of these senior centers and what and the services that they provide to our communities. Not all of them, and I can't express gratitude deeply enough for the support during this really difficult time. This year has been, I think, more difficult for our seniors who have been homebound than for most of us. So these services are even more important than they ever were. So thank you for augmenting them and for providing them in the first place.
I couldn't agree more. The centers have really stepped up this year.
Well said, Ms. Schaefer. Any other comments from council or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of agenda item number 12, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Ms. Nicolardi.
Thank you. Have a nice night.
You too.
Agenda item number 13, motion for approval of extension for lease agreement through March 31st, 2021 between the County of Delaware and Crozier Chester Medical Center dated July 1, 2014 for the purpose of operating acute care geriatric psychiatric facility in 11,420 square feet of building number 5 at a monthly rate of $60,382. The lease cost includes square footage costs and annual fixed cost of services, subject to solicitor's approval.
Second.
Thank you. We have Mr. D'Amico here to present this. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Council. Item number 13 on the agenda is to request a 1-month extension of our current lease with Crozier Chester Medical Center. This lease has been in effect since 2014 for the rental of our Building 5 Northwest unit, where Rejuvenation's Crozier's Jerry Psych unit currently resides. This extension is requested so both party solicitor's office can work in good faith towards a longer-term renewal. This lease is at a monthly rate of approximately $60,382. That total includes the square footage rental of 11,420 square foot unit, along with the fixed monthly expenses for services such as park police, environmental services, maintenance, utilities, and dietary.
Thank you, Mr. D'Amico. Any questions or comments from council? Just one question for me. So this is just for a 1-month extension. Obviously you can come back to us for another one, but do you have a degree of confidence that the negotiation will be resolved one way or another in the next month?
They've been, the solicitor's office has been negotiating since December. I would prefer, not that I enjoy hanging out with you guys every other Wednesday night. I would prefer it to be a month to month. Otherwise, I will be back again in the end of March.
Okay.
Just in case it does get held up, but it seems it's steadily moving forward. I'm just hoping we can complete it by the end of the month.
I would ask for Mr. Lichtenstein's input. I guess a question is whether it would be more efficient to have the extension be up to April 30, 2021, to provide for flexibility if the permanent, if the longer term document is not ready for the next meeting. John, do you have an opinion?
I think anything that gives our side more time to work on it without having the pressure of having to come back to council would be a positive.
All right, so that would necessitate presumably an amendment to this agenda item.
Yes. Instead of through March 31, 2021, it would be approval of monthly extension for lease agreement up to April 30, 2021. And then the rate is quoted as a monthly rate, so that does not need changed.
I'll move for that amendment.
I'll second the amendment.
Any other comments from council on this? We're hearing none. All those in favor of amending the agenda item as noted, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. All right, so we have before us then the newly amended agenda item. Remind me, Ms. Coogan, we need to make a motion on this then again, or we've already made? All right, let's move again.
We do? I thought we just did.
Hey, that you just amended the agenda, so now you're going to vote on it. Voting on the
So we
extending.
just have to vote. We don't have to move. We don't have to make another motion then. Okay. Fair enough. All right. Any other questions or comments on the newly amended motion? We're hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Mr. D'Amico.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
You too.
Agenda item number 14, motion for approval to accept grant from the Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency for the term of January 1, 2021 through December 31st, 2022 in the amount of $322,264. This grant will allow the Department of Juvenile Court and Probation Service to add 1 new position for a total of 3 full-time positions. It further provides funding for the use of temporary staff and general operating expenses in serving victims of juvenile offenders, subject to solicitor's approval.
Second.
Thank you. We have Ms. DiMatteo here to present this. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of council. Delaware County Juvenile Court and Probation Services, I apologize, seeks council's approval to accept the renewal grant through PCCD in the amount of $322,264. It is a 2-year term that will expire on December 31st of 2020. The grant allows us to fund an additional full-time position for a total of 3 victim liaisons. The funding further provides for the use of temporary staff, general operating expenses, and servicing victims of juvenile offenders. Our unit is responsible to provide victims with notification of their rights and notification of all events involved in the juvenile case, including and through termination of supervision. We accompany victims during proceedings, we assist and support victims directly, or we refer to victims to specific services provided through local agencies in the county. At the end of calendar year 2020, we had served approximately 2,000 victims. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Ms. DiMatteo on agenda item number 14? All right, hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
Agenda item number 15, motion for approval of agreements, contracts, and amendments with the Human Services Providers of Services as per the attached list, subject to solicitor's approval.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Madden. Good evening, Ms. Garrison.
Good evening. The first request I have is to amend the current contract our Adult and Family Services Office has with Community Action. And this is for the opioid disorder, housing initiative grant. As we discussed about the last council session, additional funds were passed through to the county to serve this population. The majority of the funds came through the Drug and Alcohol Office. However, $141,528 were added to the year 2 of the grant, which goes through June 30th of 2021, and that's housed within the Adult and Family Services Office. And this contract, amending Community Action, would allow those monies to pass through to the provider who has been providing services to the individuals that were currently in the program at the time the grant was extended. The second request is to amend our current contract with Children Youth Services has with Premier Biotech, and they do drug testing, and we'd ask to add additional panels to the contracted services, as well as to make the contract an NA agreement. The next request is to enter into an agreement also with Community Action for the opioid housing program we have. This is through reinvestment funds. The reinvestment plan was approved and accepted at last council session. The total dollars for this program is $303,977. Unfortunately, with the program that was developed at the state level for the opioid housing, they have a 6-month cap on the time that we're allowed to offer housing assistance. So this will help, among other things, offering case management and so forth, but to cover that additional time that people need beyond the 6 months to be in a position where they can maintain housing going forward. The next request is also reinvestment funds, and this is to enter into an agreement with Horizon House for $507,500, and this is for their homeless outreach program. This is for street outreach throughout the county for the homeless population to assist them and hopefully getting into some type of shelter. And then finally, I'd ask to enter an agreement with 3 listed Early Learning Resource Center providers for subsidized daycare within the county.
I'd just like to say, I think there are obviously so many great programs that our Human Services Department oversees, but and it's easy to sort of have one get lost in the mix. But I do want to highlight the opioid use disorder housing program. Again, as we're still in the midst of this pandemic, I should say the epidemic that has been overshadowed by the pandemic. There are so many people in Delaware County who find themselves in need of help to make sure they're in safe housing. And this is a great program that provides assistance to folks who really are at a bottom point in their life and need it. So I thank you, Ms. Garrison, again, for your team for help in making sure this occurs.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Madden. Any other questions or comments from council on agenda item number 15? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Ms. Garrison.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 16, motion for approval of an emergency rental assistance program with funds received under the Federal 2021 Consolidated Appropriations Act and Pennsylvania Act 1 of 2021, pursuant to the provisions of such legislation and any additional guidelines approved by the County Executive Director, approval of a contract with Capital Access for an amount not to exceed $2,500,000 to administer the program and provide program management software, and authorization of the County Executive Director to approve transfers of program funds for permanent expenditures and to execute any required certification or other documentation from the U.S. Treasury or the Commonwealth, subject to solicitor's approval.
Second.
Thank you. And we have Mr. Martin, Ms. Garrison, and Mr. Lichtenstein here to present this and perhaps others. I'll turn it over to Mr. Martin to begin with.
And before we start, I know that following our discussion yesterday, there was an expression by at least one of the council members that an adjustment be made to the motion to include precise dollar figures in terms of what constitutes the program dollars.
Yes, that would be me.
And Ms. Ruther, do you want to make the amendment?
Yes, I would like to propose an amendment. Let me bring up the language from Mr. Lichtenstein. Thank you, by the way, for taking care of that. I'm sorry, I've had such a plethora of emails coming in over this period of time. I thought I had you up on my screen. Yes, here we go. I would propose the following amendment so that it reads as follows. Approval of an emergency rental assistance program with funds received under the federal 2021 Consolidated Appropriations Act in the amount of $16,887,319.80 and Pennsylvania Act 1 of 2021 in the amount of $20 million or $20,387,802.41 pursuant to the provisions of such legislation and any additional guidelines approved by the county executive director. Approval of a contract with Capital Access for an amount not to exceed $2.5 million to administer the program and provide program management software, and authorization of the county executive director to approve transfers of the above referenced emergency rental assistance program funds for permitted expenditures and to execute any required certifications or other documents from the U.S. Treasury or Commonwealth with monthly reports to council on such expenditures, subject to solicitor's approval.
I'll second that amendment.
All right, so we have a proposed motion to amend the current motion. Any other questions or comments on Ms. Ruther's proposed amendment?
I would just make the notation that my reason for requesting this is these are very substantial sums of money, and it is appropriate to, I think, have somebody who's on the ground who's in a position to approve amounts that have to be transferred and paid out, because it can be very difficult to get council members together to do this, and to do this on a bi-weekly basis may not be helping the people we need to help. So I think it's appropriate, but I also think it is in everybody's interest that we clearly define the scope of that authority, and that we provide for regular reporting to council with respect to this delegation of authority. And so that is why I asked for the amendment, and I appreciate Mr. Lichtenstein running down the dollar amounts so quickly and getting them plugged in.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I just have a question on the approval of the transfer. Does that still contemplate the normal process for dispersing funds to a third party? So we sometimes, and when we've had these large amounts of sums, there sort of can be, people are like, wire money, and it's like it can't really be wired without going through the appropriate transfer process. So I just want to get clarification. So the authority to transfer is the authority to approve funds that should go into this, move from the county into into Capital Access.
Well, as you know, Ms. Phillips, because of the magnitude of the number of checks that are going to be involved here, we had agreed, and I discussed with you, not imposing upon the controller staff the obligation to be cutting what essentially will be thousands of checks over a several month period.
No,
let me finish, please. What is anticipated is that there will be an agreed upon advance of funds into Capital Access, and Capital Access will draw down those funds via payments out to beneficiaries of the rental assistance program, and that as the corpus of funds that are available shrink to a certain level, they'll come in with a new request with the support of explaining how the monies went out the door. That clearly will be subject to your office's review. We will work with Mr. Newberg and his staff to try to have this done in a way that we're not having fire drills in terms of the controller's office saying has to happen today, has to happen tomorrow. That being said, the entirety of this program needs to be executed over a relatively short period of 4 or 5 months. So there's a balance we'll have to strike, because on the one hand, it wouldn't be fair to say, send the money tomorrow. But on the other hand, if we have a 2 or 3 week delay, it will impact the program's ability to meet the regulations.
Yeah, Mr. Martin, I totally agree with you that we don't want to be involved in cutting checks for the ultimate recipients of this. That's not what I was really describing, but it sounds like we're in agreement that whatever the disbursement into a larger sums of money as they move into the program, I just wanted to be clear that the payment process would still be involved in that. And I think from planning and scheduling and just communication, that won't be an issue.
Yeah, to be honest, I think that is the advantage of being able to delegate to the executive director the day-to-day control, that there could be, it's not going to get held up going through council, and it's going to be able to be communicated I think more immediately from him, and there will be that particular approval piece will work. As I said, my goal here was not to prevent the designation of authority or the easy access of this. There will be, my understanding is, since this is state and federal grant money, essentially, there's going to be pretty stringent accounting for it. It was just really trying to clearly define the scope of the delegation of authority to move money.
Mr. Chairman, I don't believe you've yet voted on the amendment. And maybe if you clear that hurdle, then we'll jump into our presentation.
Fair enough. Sounds like a good plan. Any other questions or comments from council on the motion to amend? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. All right, so we have the newly amended motion. And if you want to, Mr.
Yes.
Martin, if you and Mr. Lichtenstein and company want to go forward then?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a program that has been referenced in at least 2 prior council sessions. But in this meeting, we're coming to council for approval in 2 regards. Number 1 is approval of entering into a contract with Capital Access, and embedded within the same motion is delegation to the executive director to approve transfer of funds consistent with the program. Jeremy Newberg, who is the president of Capital Access, is joining us this evening, and he'll in a second provide information to council regarding his company and regarding how he envisions this program rolling out over the next month or 2. Again, this is a significant federal program where the county enjoys approximately $37.2 million, one segment of which are federal funds, the other segment of which are state funds. There are slightly different program requirements imposed on each pocket of money, but that being said, the purpose of the program is to provide financial assistance to individuals who rent their homes and who have run into problems because of COVID. The monies will be utilized to pay past due rent, past due utilities, up to 3 months of prospective rent, in order to make sure that renters are not subject to eviction, ejectment, and the problems of homelessness. A group in the county that has included Ms. Garrison, Linda Hill, Frank Bellata, myself, Mr. Lichtenstein, has been working on this for over a month. And we went through a competitive process to field expressions of interest from multiple companies who were interested in handling this program for the county. And our recommendation to council is that it engage Capital Access. The program, again, is focused on individuals whose adjusted median income is 50% or less of the county median. And then they get first priority, and then individuals who are 80% or less will also receive a priority. We've been in touch with the courts so that landlords who have filed for ejectment on or before January 31, we will reach out to them and try to resolve those matters. We think that there is both a value to the county in clearing the court docket. There's probably 800 to 1,000 cases of ejectment proceedings pending in both the magistrate court levels and the common pleas court levels. And we also think that the fact that people have brought suits previously provides some comfort of the bona fides of their claims and helps to avoid any issues of fraud. So that's a broad overview, and I'd like to ask Mr. Newberg to share with you background about his company and how he would envision this program first being put together during the month of March and then being rolled out during the month of April. Jeremy?
Good evening. It is a pleasure to be with everyone. Can you hear me okay? Okay, happy Wednesday evening. So thank you for the opportunity to work with Delaware County. This is an honor. My firm, Capital Access, is 26 years old, March 25th. And we have been a HUD technical assistance provider since 2000. HUD deploys us all over the country to help recipients of CDBG and other HUD funds. Our special sauce is that we demystify the regs, and then we bring a management consultant's approach to running grant programs. I created CapGems a year and a half ago because I was increasingly concerned that so many well-intentioned grantees just couldn't get money out the door. Some of that's just a compliance burden. Some of it is a systems burden. Some of it is staff turnover. So we designed Capital Access Project and Grants Management Services as a service that comes with a system. There's no software license. You get my consulting staff with a system. There's no point in hiring a software system and then calling a 1-800 number and praying that you'll get a human being on the other line. And it's not an outsourcing or staff replacement. It's actually an enhancement program. We're plumbers. Where there's a clog, we want to get it unclogged. The Emergency Rental Assistance Program is a great round 2 in COVID relief because the federal government listened to the local governments and listened to the community service organizations and made the program much more streamlined. Complexity kills. If there's too much complexity, we can't scale. You got a big county. This is an inner ring county with concentrations of poverty, and the need is great. So we are looking at, on the assumption that we will fund 3 months in past due rent and 3 months in future rent and some utilities, just as a benchmark for the production model. We're looking at 5,000 grants ranging between $6,000 or $7,000 on the assumption that it's $1,100 to $1,200 combined rent and utilities. What we're trying to do is bring as much efficiency to the model. We've run 4 different COVID relief programs in 2020 in St. Johns County, Florida, Gainesville, Florida, and Hillsborough County, Florida, which was surrounding Tampa. And what I did in the proposal and the design was take the lessons learned from that experience and present it to Delaware. I want to thank everyone who's agreed to be a part of the coordination team. That is one of the most important factors for success. And so, Ms. Phillips, the question you were asking about the mechanics of the money is everything. I was slowed down in Hillsborough County because the housing staff didn't have a good relationship with the finance staff. We have to have a shared investment in the success of this program. So begin with the end in mind. First thing when we meet, we've already drafted the program design. The program design is the policies and procedures and how do you get to yes? How do you get to no? How do you document it? What is the process map? Who does what when? With what decision-making authority? With what documentation? That's the process map. And we've already written that, and we've already incorporated the guidance from Treasury a week ago. Then what I want to do is go over what is your audit trail? because CapGems is essentially a digital file cabinet. We do the application online. We do the verification reviews, believe it or not, in Excel. Wow, how old school. Excel? I thought you were a groovy tech dude. Excel? Are you kidding me? Well, the beauty of Excel is I can customize it. And then I just save it to the digital file cabinet. We will have a customer relationship management system where we can track every communication with the applicants. We're going to submit a policy of 3 affirmative efforts to get verification documents. In the application, we don't ask for documents. We just want to do a threshold review to see that you suffered disruption and loss due to COVID, that you're a resident in the county, and whether or not you self-certify that you're below 50% of median or someone in your household has been unemployed for at least 90 days. That whole prioritization. If someone can get us an IRS 1040, we move them up the processing because a 1040, current 1040 is almost like gold for income verification. Once we move them through, then we can do the verification reviews. We have case managers that will go through these applications. A third of our case managers speak Spanish. If we need to, we'll do in-person applications for either people with language issues or physical disabilities. We want to work with human services on that, engaging community organizations. If need be, we'll do it ourselves. The grant agreements will be done online, just like DocuSign. And we have the ability to fund the grants with either a direct deposit or a bank check. What we'll need is an advance. And we submitted that. And the idea is you advance a certain percentage. At the end of each month, we give you a reconciliation invoice of every single grant and the full audit trail of files in a zip file. So you have it. You'll have access to the files in CapGems for the full term of your audit responsibility, which I think is 5 years. And that will be online for you, but we can also create a zip file to move it to a destination that works for you. So the idea is you advance, and then we do a reconciliation invoice, you have your audit trail, you advance some more so that we always have cash to fund a grant as soon as the applicant signs the grant agreement. I'm excited, I'm honored. This is going to be a heavy lift because we want to get all the money out by the end of September. Treasury says 65% of the money needs to be expended by the end of September. I'd like to get it all out by the end of September because I'm a little bullish, but I don't think every other county in the Commonwealth is going to spend that money. And if you can get more of the money based on the Widow Bryan's report, heaven knows you have the need. So thank you for this opportunity. If you have any questions, happy to answer them.
Jeremy, please stand by. Perhaps Ms. Garrison could talk a little bit about how she sees her group involved, you know, office locations, face-to-face, language challenges, sort of the more core human services component.
Absolutely, thank you. I would like to see this program, like to see have on-site, ability to apply in our office at Upper Darby, as well as our offices in Eddystone, to have representation at both sides of the county. I know with the PHFA rent relief program, that was one of the issues we've heard back, among other issues with the development of the program, was just that people were difficult to get to where they needed to apply. So this way would have applications sites at both ends of the county. I've started preliminary conversations with Multicultural Community Family Services. They are a key partner in the Delaware County Immigrant Coalition. So we are going to approach the coalition for Group by Council and ask for some input on how they see us working with that coalition immigrant population in the county. Additionally, we've had lots of conversations within our staff about how we can best get the word out there to the community members. We've talked about talking to landlords. We've talked about going to food pickups. We do have, I believe there's still a fairly large one weekly in Upper Darby, having somebody there with a laptop to assist people in applying if they come in to pick up food. Additionally, we've given a lot of consideration to trying to work with the churches in the community, because a lot of people are connected with churches, so that would also give people an opportunity to be aware of the program. The idea is to get as much of the information out there as possible, and make sure that people can apply and they're aware of it and they know how to apply. And if they don't have a computer or they don't have a smartphone, they have the ability to come on site and apply in person. We also putting my old CFO hat back on, we also will definitely work with the controller's office and make sure that we do have all the audit information. I understand that's a key part of this. We don't want to put the county in a position where there's an issue down the road. So that definitely is on the forefront of our thoughts as well.
Maybe we'll stop a second, and if council members have questions either for Mr. Newberg or any of us.
Thank you. Any questions, council?
Well, I would like to say, first of all, welcome to Delco, Mr. Newberg. We're very happy to have you here. This is an extraordinarily important program for us. You know, I think we all feel very lucky that we have been given these incredible resources from the federal government and the state government to address this very large problem. And it's, in my view, it's very overwhelming, the task ahead of us to push out $35 million in 6 months in pretty small grants. And each one of them, I mean, I want to make sure, I want to hear your take on the complexity of this. Each one of them is really a tri-party agreement, because it's not just you and the grant and the recipient. You also have a landlord who has to buy into this.
And a utility. And a utility.
And a utility. Yeah. So it's a 4-party agreement, each one of them. And, you know, as a county, we have just lived through our economic grant program, which was smaller than this, fewer recipients, bigger grants, 2 parties. And we saw the mountains that had to be moved to make that happen. So, I think we're all feeling just a little apprehensive about doing this right and making sure it goes right. So there are just a couple dynamics that I want to just hear your take on. First, the 4-party aspect of this. Second, the language barrier is very real in some of the communities where this is going to be most needed. And it's, you know, in Upper Darby, there are 75 languages spoken. So that's an issue. The income verification is, I mean, in those communities getting 1040s, I mean, a lot of these employees are cash economy employees. And I know that the guidelines have some, you know, self-attestation allowances for cash economy employees. So I'd love to hear your take on that. And it's just a hard community to reach some of these people. And I think you're going to need a lot of people on the ground to reach these recipients that are, even if they're vaguely aware that there is aid available or they hear a rumor about it, they have no idea how to access it. So I'll stop there and let you react to some of those dynamics.
Okay, so I took 4 notes. 1, strategy for cultivating applications in very diverse communities where people are probably exhausted and a little frustrated with government. I added that. 2, and linked to that, how to manage the language barrier. 3, how to do income verification with people that might be earning their income in the cash economy. And 4, the mechanics of how you, the term, very technical term we use in our business, herd cats and push ropes as it relates to coordinating property managers with tenants and the county and the rules. So let's start with cultivation of applications. I was trained as a field organizer in the Cesar Chavez farm workers movement method of politics. I work a precinct. I view this as a campaign. We are moving a message. And a good field operation for a campaign identifies the community partners, the people who know people in the community, the self-appointed mayors. They could be with nonprofits, they could be elected officials, they could just be folks that help other folks. We've got to work that network. That's why I was so driven to sell the idea of the coordination team within the county, because you all know those folks. You all know those folks. I'm your facilitator and implementer. You have the community relationships. We have to leverage that. okay? It's about you and your community. And so it's spreading that message. The first 2 weeks, we're going to be focusing on the program design, the modifications to CapGEMS. I'm getting my staff trained, and then we're doing the marketing plan all at the same time, okay? And we need to coordinate. The reason why I wanted people from communications on this coordination team is that the county has the ability to move messages. It has vast networks of communication. We have to get that out, okay? In terms of language barrier, I will seek to engage community service organizations that have the ability to translate and actually offer a fee for service. If people are giving up time, part of my fee will go to that, okay? And then I have on-call language services as needed. And we have to, if I come up with a situation where there's a community that is just not being served, it will probably come back to all of you because of representational democracy. Bring it to us and we will figure out how best to do it. But first I want to work with community service organizations and a fair fee for a service. And that could be producing the in-person application. It can be the language services application, production of verification documents, execution of grant agreement, the life cycle of the application. As it relates to income verification, okay. So what Treasury is saying is make an affirmative and clear effort to get income verification documentation. A 1040 is the best. Not everyone's going to have a 1040. Pay stubs are helpful, okay? We will construct that audit trail with legitimate documentation. When we can't get it, we will document the 3 affirmative efforts that we've made to get it, and then we will rely on a self-certification. The application that the applicants fill out will be that self-certification right at the beginning. Because I want to avoid the back and forth.
Right.
Okay. So it'll check off, you know, do you earn 50% of median or less? Well, we're going to have the income chart right next to them. And the application will show if you're a family of 2 or a family of 4, what that amount is. Do you earn less than this amount? Has anyone in your household been unemployed for at least 90 days? Okay. And then we work down the chain of different scenarios of how you suffered disruption and loss due to COVID. Because I've run programs where people said, I don't have income. And I'm like, come on, you got something, you're buying food. Somehow let's work on this. So we want to show in the records of the application the efforts that we made to gather that document. And I was just so delighted that Treasury got the message to allow self-certification. If we just did self-certification for everyone, you'd have a bad audit. But if we do self-certification for a reasonable percentage and we document the affirmative efforts to gather the documents, or even if they're incomplete and we have them on file, I think you have a defensible audit trail. Okay, now, tri-party agreement. The state, in how it set up the rules for the coronavirus relief funds, just didn't understand rental property, unfortunately. To say to a landlord, in order to get subsidy, you got to cut the rent. They're like, excuse me, I'm hurting already. We have to communicate to the property managers that we're helping you in this financial crisis. Okay, and one of the things that we do is as soon as, first of all, the application is going to have 2 parts. It'll be a registration where we just collect threshold information. Are you a resident of the county? What's your income? Has anyone been unemployed? And then they fill out the full application. Once the application is complete, my production lead is going to immediately send a letter or an email to the applicant requesting photo ID, evidence of income, evidence of job loss, a lease, okay? And we create a dedicated portal where all they have to do is type in their email address and it opens up and it's upload here, your photo ID, upload here. We provide a video and we provide case managers either through Zoom or on the phone to do the upload. At the same time, we send a similar letter to the property manager. Hello, property manager. James Gray has applied for rental assistance. in order to facilitate this, we want you to do an affidavit. The affidavit summarizes the lease terms and then gives us an update of the past due rent, because we ask the tenant for the past due rent, but we also ask the property manager, and we'll choose the most defensible of the two. And by doing that, if I get a bad lease uploaded, like it isn't signed, or some leases are 30 pages and I just get the back page, and my favorite is someone emailed me a thumb, just a picture of her thumb. That was a joke. I guess it didn't work so well. Okay, and it happened. That's the digital divide. When you get weird documents sent to you, that affidavit is as good as a lease because it summarizes the terms, the unit number, the amount of the rent, any past due. So we cultivate the property managers as a partner because it helps them with their cash flow. And we are not saying take $750 even though your rent is $1,000. We're going to make people whole. Now, I want to make two more suggestions because you seem to have an appetite for the details. I'm going to respectfully submit that you don't subsidize internet. The FCC has an internet subsidy program in this coronavirus relief bill. Let's just direct people to that. The amount of time that we're going to take, figuring out, how cable bills bundle internet? You don't really know what you're paying for internet. And again, complexity kills. So if we can direct people to the FCC subsidy, it saves time. Another example. If people have 2 or 3 different utilities, that's going to kill us. We're going to choose one utility that's the largest. If they can produce a statement, we'll do it for the past due amount and not tie it to how many rents. And then what I suggest going forward, we take the Public Housing Authority utility allowances and use that for the 3 months going forward. These are examples, technical examples, of how we can do things more efficiently and reduce the back and forth between the applicant. They're stressed out. They're confused. Who's this person on the phone? Okay? We want to humanize it with dignity.
I agree with you. Less complex to get this kind of money out in this amount of. It's going to have to be streamlined. One last question for you. We have learned in this vaccine rollout that we have significant households, especially among the elderly, that do not have access to a computer, and even if they do, they can't navigate it. Like anything beyond a Zoom with their grandkids, forget it. It's not happening. So how are we going to deal with them?
2 ways. The majority of our applicants in Florida submitted their applications with their iPhone or their Android. That's one. I know that sounds crazy, but we literally can, with our case managers, teach them how to scan a document with their iPhone, and we give them an application that converts it to a PDF, or we'll take it as a JPEG. Now, you're probably like, that's about as warm as a block of ice. The next is 19 of my case managers live in the Delaware Valley. And if I have to deploy them to do in-person applications, we will. They'll all have laptops that have internet access. I'm very excited that Ms. Garrison wants to deploy staff as well to do the in-person. And let's get as many applicants as early as possible. And so if that is the solution for in-person, we'll do it, because I don't view an in-person application as a poor use of our time. We want to get as many applications up front as we can, all right? Because my father ran the Say Yes to Education program, which gave kids in West Philly full scholarships to go to college. His biggest challenge was convincing the families the value of the gift of going to college. He had to work with them. So if people don't understand that this is real money to help people, they're going to fade back. And we have to be on a campaign to say, no, the money's real. This can happen. It can work for you. It is a campaign.
Okay, thank you.
I had a question, which is, one of the challenges of a program like this is making sure that people know about it. And I know you've talked about working with community groups and other things. Are you expecting I'm assuming that's not exclusively, you'll work with anybody who comes to you in terms of trying to get their clients and their community enrolled. But is the expectation as part of this program that the county is going to be doing outreach as well? And if it is, to spend this amount of money and to make sure that we're getting accurate information out to people, does part of this program, either as part of your contract, or would you recommend the county build into its administrative costs, bringing in a communication specialist, somebody doing outreach at the county level to get to as many different points of contact as we can?
If I can jump in there, the amount of money that is being provided to capital access, while significant, still leaves several hundreds of thousands of dollars that can be used for administrative costs under the federal limitations. And Ms. Garrison has put together a preliminary budget having to do with how those funds are utilized, and there are potential expenditures on the communication side. We're going to have the county's communication staff involved in the kickoff meeting, assuming council approves this engagement. We've reached out to legal aid of Delaware County because many of the cases that are involved are matters where legal aid is representing the tenants. We're making that contact, and we'll continue to make every reasonable approach to kind of get out to people.
I would say, and I'm saying this a little bit having worn my hat as the liaison with the election departments during a time where we were trying to communicate a huge amount of change. In some respects, it was a much broader based communication, but in a lot of ways, it was a lot simpler. Sort of, you're not explaining to people who are freaked out about being able to pay their rent, or where they're going to be living next week, or, are they going to lose their water, or what have you. And I think we did. I can tell you, with the other demands on our communications department, I really feel that having somebody dedicated, even if it's a contractor who only devotes 50% of their time to this, should be seriously considered by the county, because Mr. Newberg's group is going to have their hands full with the administration and reaching the people who go to them and explaining the process to the people who bring clients to them. But to spend this amount of money, we are a county that historically has not done a particularly good job of advertising the services that it has available. I honestly believe that, and I'm happy to discuss that with anybody in the future. But it's not for lack of the people being available to provide those services, but to be able to spend this kind of money and to make sure it's spent in the right way, we need to dedicate resources to letting people know the money is there.
All right, thank you. I guess I got an email this evening at like 5:15 saying the money's coming out, and I think we're getting it on Friday. So this money's going to be here really fast, and I agree with the comments previously made. The county is just not. We're just not structured in a fashion to be able to get this much money out this quickly, and it's small amounts that we have to be sending it out. And if we don't get it out, we forfeit it, and we forfeit our ability to get more money. So appreciate Mr. Newberg's team being here for us and for the citizens of Delaware County. I'm certainly in favor of this, and look forward to getting this much needed relief out to folks. Any other questions or comments from council on the, I guess, newly amended agenda item number 16?
Mr. Chairman, can I just make two comments? One is, when we did the Delco Strong programs and the money was funded into EDOB, that is part of the county. So I would like to be able to talk and work with Mr. Martin and Mr. Lichtenstein about just security of the money that's going to the third party, to the vendor here. So that's just a discussion to have, because we have protections for our bank accounts now under Act 72 and things like that. So that's one thing. And the other thing was that I today was talking in terms of administrative costs. I'd like to be able to come back. There are accounting firms that are specializing in monitoring this rental assistance program. And I think that it's the same way that PR doesn't have resources, we don't have resources to monitor it. And I would like to be able to come back and ask for some assistance on that to help us keep monitoring it as we go so that we don't anticipate any problems and disallowance later. So I want to work with everybody, great program, and I appreciate everyone's work on that, but there are details of protecting the money and being accountable for it later. So we don't want to have to pay any back.
Oh, man. No, I appreciate that, and would welcome your recommendations, and appreciate you working with Mr. Martin and his team to make sure that the monies being sent out are that we're careful about it. It's a lot of money that's going out there, so it's necessary that we take protections.
And I would say, Mr. Zidek, somebody needs to give Mr. Hackett in Treasury a call to make sure that he knows where the money is coming in and where it's going to be placed. Because if you've got $37 million sitting around, even the float on it over a weekend is not nothing, even at today's interest rates. And there may be some of our banking institutions out there may have some ideas for how to provide us with the protections that Ms. Phillips looking for, I just, as we're setting up accounts that Mr. Newberg and his team can utilize.
Good idea. Mr. Lazarus, can I ask you to reach out to Mr. Hackett and let him know that the money may be on its way?
I will certainly do so.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments on agenda item number 16? All right, hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Mr. Newberg.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Agenda item number 17, motion for approval to advertise for requests for proposals to obtain an operator for the county's medical assistance transportation program, subject to solicitor's approval.
Second.
I'll wait you out. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Lazarus, I believe you were going to present this item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are seeking council's approval to look for proposals for our medical assistance transportation program. The current contract received a single proposal at the time of award, and council would like to know if the competitive market has changed and whether or not additional service providers are available and interested. Concurrent with this proposal, the county may also examine the feasibility and competitiveness of providing medical assistance transportation services as an in-house program. Issuing the RFP does not require the county to make a new award, but does provide assurance that the best value in services is being provided for Delaware County community members.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council?
I thought about this since yesterday, and I wonder, it seems though, and Ms. Garrison, if she's still on, can verify this, that the service that we're getting right now is competent and good. And we are without a procurement department right now, basically. And I'm just wondering if this is the right time to do this.
I'm going to dispute that last comment. I think we've done a lot to rebuild our purchasing capability.
Okay, we're with a newly rebuilt purchasing department. My bad. A newly rebuilt purchasing department, and I would love to hear, kind of what the impetus is on this, and if this is really the right time to do this.
If I can add to that, in talking to Ms. Garrison, the service, she relayed to me that the service being provided is of good quality, and this is being brought forward in response to some council concerns about whether or not it's the best value and about some of the organizational matters with the current provider. It's never bad to test the market, but we are at a time where you, I think, rightly say that there are some bandwidth issues with all the things that are going on. So I always want to be responsive to council's needs, but of all the balls we have to keep in the air, this one, I think at this point, is not necessarily made out of glass.
I mean, from my perspective, this issue has gone back for a year or two. We sought to put this out to RFP previously, and I think we did put it out to RFP. I don't think that anybody bid on it, and I spoke to one of the vendors who said there was not enough information given to even enable them to bid the last time, and they really didn't think they had a chance anyway. So, I think this is something that, as Mr. Lazarus is saying, it is good to get bids on things, and this is I don't know that this has been really effectively bid through no fault of anybody here for quite some time. There have also been some issues in the press with regard to some difficulties that community transit is facing. Again, perhaps not of their making, but still difficulties they're facing. And community transit itself has come to us and said, hey, given that it's going back 4 or 5 months now, but they were expressing a desire to ask us to change the current contract, suggesting that they were not able to make ends meet. And with all that going on, I think it behooves us to try to figure out what options are there that might exist for us to make sure that this very important service is a secure one that we know that we have confidence in the vendor, and one that we can make sure that our citizens are being transported safely. So I am in favor of this, but I do recognize the many different things, the many balls that are in the air.
Yeah, I would just add that I think to say that they're competent is probably fine, but the fact is this was put out for bid before, a year ago. I think there are aspects of the service, like any service, that you might want to improve. And sometimes the best way to improve it is through competition. At least that's what pre-market people tell us. And I think also we've got a situation where it's probably safe to say that before this was put out for bid the last time, it's never been put out to bid. This organization was created by the county. It basically took over a county function. So, and it's been in there. It wants the community transit wants to be an independent organization, but they've come to the county numerous times to ask for additional funding for things. I think it's frankly, I don't think just because somebody was set up by the county that they're entitled to ongoing subsidy. They need to demonstrate that the service they're giving us is commensurate with the support they're seeking. And if I'm going to support something, I want to have a lot more control than we have over community transit. So I think there's a whole number of reasons why I want to explore whether there is another outside alternative and what might be involved if we were to try and bring the service in. And I would just encourage Mr. Lazarus and the team, in purchasing, and, Ms. Garrison's folks to get as much data as they can on the kinds of trips that we do, how they're booked, all that other kinds of, who's eligible, all that other kinds of information to make sure that we can give people a complete package, a bid package, and get real bids. And also, if we choose to look at an internal option, that we have a well thought out plan.
Yeah, I think I agree with what Christine said. I mean, I think it is unfortunate timing in the sense that we do have a lot of balls in the air. But if this is a point where we're being asked to support their infrastructure needs, I think it really behooves us to make sure that there is a process here and to see what other alternatives there are before we take any measures in the form of funding or a change in the structure in terms of relationship that this organization has with the county. I do think we have to have some sort of a process. So it's somewhat timing that's been foisted upon us, unfortunately.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from council on agenda item number 17? All right, hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you very much.
Agenda item number 18, motion for approval to advertise for bids to deliver and pick up voting equipment and PPE kits to polling locations for the year 2021 in the primary and general elections, subject to solicitor's approval.
Second.
Thank you. We have Mr. Savage here this evening. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of council. I'm here to seek approval to advertise for bids to deliver and pick up the voting equipment and PPE kits for polling locations for this year. Last year, it was determined that this should be an annual bid rather than a multi-year bid. It's a pretty standard bid with the exception this year of the addition of the delivery and pickup of the PPE kits. And we have contemplated, if necessary, language for the general election due to not being able to know what the circumstances will be in November.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council? All right, hearing none, all those in favor of agenda item number 18, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Mr. Savage.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 19, motion for approval of annual software license and support renewal with Hart InterCivic for the term January 1, 2021 to January 31st, 2022 in an amount not to exceed $275,101, subject to solicitor's approval.
Second.
Thank you. We have Ms. Hagan here to present this. Good evening, ma'am.
Yes, good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Council. I am requesting your approval for the annual software license and support fee from January of 21 through January of 22. As stated, it's for a total of $275,101. That incorporates what we purchased for the new Hart voting system in the 2029 contract, and our 2019 contract of the new voting system, as well as the equipment we added in the beginning of the year with the enactment of Act 77, and we had estimated we needed additional equipment. So that's what the two invoices for this purchase are for, or for this money is for.
Ms. Hagan, we went through this yesterday, but since we tend to get a larger audience on Wednesday nights than we do on Tuesday morning, I'll ask you the same question again. I know, and as I said yesterday, I'll say again, I know you ran a really robust process for the Election Bureau and the Board of Elections when vetting the new machine purchase, which I think took place in 2019. And Hart was the successful bidder there. And as part of that, I seem to recall that you looked into the annual licensing agreements and maintenance agreements and things for the equipment, and that was in fact taken into account in the determination to get the Hart machines. Is that right?
Yes, it was.
Okay. So, and what you explained to us yesterday when I asked was that the service contract price, well, we're out more than 1 year. And so it was anticipated we'd see an increase. That increase is in line with what Hart told us we could expect.
Yes, that is
here. Okay.
Yes.
So in other words, we are pretty much getting what you expected to get when the Board of Elections recommended to council the purchase of the Hart machines.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Hagan? All right, hearing none, all those in favor of agenda item number 19, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Ms. Hagan.
All right. Thank you.
Agenda item number 20, motion for approval of a motion for an interdepartmental budget transfer of $120,000 from grant funds to Park Police Department for compensation of 3 unbudgeted positions.
Second.
Thank you. We have Mr. Martin here to present this.
I would think Mr. Lazarus is going to present it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had the wrong person down here. Mr. Lazarus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I can certainly speak towards this. Superintendent Mahoney has identified the need for 3 additional positions. They were not identified at the time the budget was prepared and presented to council because at that point, we were not aware that we were going to construct and operate the Yaden Center to provide first a vaccination center and then later on for wellness activities. We also, at that time, did not fully support the staffing of the Election Operations Center. Again, something that was driven by an increase in absentee ballots due to the COVID pandemic. So these items and this need exist because of things that were not available at the time we prepared the budget, but are very real right now. Therefore, they are eligible for CARES Act funding. And speaking with Superintendent Mahoney, we will have to, over the coming months, evaluate whether these are ongoing commitments that will go into the upcoming fiscal year, FY 2022, and we will look at his staffing plan to make sure that recurring requirements are funded with recurring funding sources. But for now, we do need to support the need to provide the staffing at both the wharf and at the Yaden Center.
Thank you, Mr. Lazarus. Any questions?
As I understand it, these revenues are available in our budget, and the need for these park police staff members is, keeping our new spaces safe in a pretty challenging environment in the last year and probably going forward. So I wholeheartedly support it.
Agreed. I guess I would say that our park police have been stretched pretty thin over this last year. They've been asked to do things that they hadn't before from, I would submit an unnecessarily contentious election and the resulting security that was needed around that to just having to deal with keeping the building safe and having during the COVID crisis and making sure that people coming in are they take their temperatures and whatnot, and doing so in a pretty stressful environment. So, I think it's needed that we need to beef up the Park Police Department, and appreciative of all the work that those guys have done, men and women, I should say, have done over the past year.
I would just add that, one of the challenges with some of these changes I should say not changes so much, but expansions in responsibilities for departments like the Park Police is happening at the same time as we have been trying to make sure that our budget is reflective of actual expenditures, and then that we're not carrying large numbers of vacancies for many, many years at a time and doing other things. And so we successfully in this budget, thanks to the work of Mr. Lazarus and his team, restored an unassigned fund balance. And that unassigned fund balance is available to be transferred. It is in effect a cushion in the budget, and it's a more appropriate cushion than the kind of cushion that I think in many individual departments carried in the past by having lots of vacant positions that hadn't been filled in many years. I don't think that was true for the Park Police. I think they did tend to fill their positions, but it's more appropriate that the money sits in an unassigned fund balance in the available for all the needs of the county, and that these kinds of changes can be made, and that's why you carry it. So while this is a slightly different way of doing things than might have been done in the past, I endorse it because I think it is really making changes that meet the needs as they arise. And council, in approving these kinds of budget changes, isn't it's to be expected, and it's why we carry that balance.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from council? Hearing none, all those in favor of agenda item number 20, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, this may be an appropriate time to invite a motion to take item 5A off the table and consider whether there are any public comments and then proceed for consideration.
So moved.
Second.
All right, I guess we have to vote on the motion to take it off the table. So all those in favor of detabling item number 5, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, back on the table now. Any other comments from council before we get to public comment? All right, do we have any public comments then, Mr. Martin? Do you know?
I think I would defer to Ms. Ruther if she has it in front of her.
Okay.
Yes, I pulled it up in front of me and there are no comments on this particular new agenda item.
Okay. Anything else council wishes to share? All right, and that, just to refresh everybody's mind, this is the MOU for Springfield Hospital, correct? Okay, good. All right, hearing nothing from anybody, public or council, all those in favor of the agenda item number 5, the MOU with Springfield Hospital, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it.
And just to be clear, I think it's 5A, right?
5A.
5A, I'm sorry, yep.
All right, agenda item number 21. Motion for approval of Central Tax Collection Department's request for refunds for the year 2020 county real estate taxes for 2 property owners due to overpayment of the amount of taxes due.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Anything of note?
There are 2 items. They total $413.34, and Treasury would ask for your approval.
Any questions or comments from council? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Agenda item number 22, motion for approval, request by the Controller's Office for payment of current bills.
Second.
Ms. Phillips, anything of note?
No, but you used to be very interested in the bills for CM3, and there's another $116,000 for mostly for Fair Acres. So it's in the ordinary course, but while we're doing all this big work, I do request that we keep going back to the smaller things and try and get those out for bid as well.
I appreciate that. I don't know. That work has never been bid during my over 3 years on council. It just seems to be the work that keeps on paying. So I'll speak to Mr. D'Amico and Mr. Lazarus about potentially putting that out to bid, and then the rest of council can obviously opine about that. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, and just as an update, the Controller's Office put an RFP out today for professional auditing services for all the magisterial district courts, which will be rotating through the 30 courts over several years. So we put that out today. So that was, I don't think we've ever done that before either.
All right, and refresh my memory too. I know you and I had spoken about this before. We had been having them all of them audited every year. Was that, am I remembering that correctly? When in fact we can do them not all every year?
Well, the Auditor General does them every year and does performance and also financial. The county was, through the courts, they were basically selecting an auditor themselves, and they were it was on a rotation. So the law is not clear that I think it's meant for small counties where they only have a few courts. We've got 30. So we are planning a rotation. So they will not all be done in 1 year. We've done it based with working with President Judge Kelly and Mr. Chuck McDonald on the best way to do that mainly by location. And we're really looking at just a financial audit for monies that should come back to the county, because we think the state auditor general covers the performance matters of how they run the offices. So anyway, it's online today.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I will note that it's my understanding that we have far more magisterial court judges and courts, I should say, per capita than anywhere else in the state. I think you said we have 30. I think Chester County has 16. Bucks County has 16. It's not clear to me why we have so many more, but we seem to be awash in them. I think Montgomery County, that's, roughly 30% bigger than us, has only 30 of themselves. So that, I don't know that necessarily within our jurisdiction, but it's of interest.
This is the year for it to be relevant, because that will be looked at by the AOPC, and there may be some changes in the works. So we'll see.
Okay. All right. Well, that may be the longest discussion we've ever had on the payment of current bills. So any other questions or comments from council on agenda item number 22? All right, hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Ms. Phillips.
Thank you.
Agenda
Go ahead.
Agenda item number 23 moves into communications from the executive director.
Thank you. Attached to the agenda are 3 purchase orders that were issued under the emergency authorities the council had provided. They are all related to construction of the Yaden Wellness Center. Two of the 3 are the Cobra Electric and the pending payment to Lynn Architects are both related to outfitting the wellness center. One with Ford Brothers Electric is for heaters and electrical service related to the COVID testing site that was done in Upland. So I'm providing those for council's information. Earlier today also, I had sent a summary of the PPE that was purchased using the authority that the council had provided last November. It's important that we, as was discussed earlier, that we report on the authorities that are given to us. So I had sent that to you earlier this afternoon. I also have the information on the cost to build out phase 1 of the Yaden Center, and I will forward that to council by separate email for the next few days. So we all appreciate the support and confidence and trust you have in us to work through these issues that are compelling and urgent, and want to honor the trust that you've given us. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lazarus. Any questions from council? All right, moving on to number 24, solicitor's report.
I would seek a motion for approval to file 2 consents for adoption with the Orphans Court.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any questions for Mr. Martin on this? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
And nothing else from the solicitor tonight. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next agenda item calls for a public comment. Ms. Ruther, so you seem to suggest perhaps we had a few public comments this evening.
Mr. Martin, I think I've got early onset memory problems, but you read one comment today. Was it from someone in Upland regarding vaccine? Yes, then there have been no additional public comment.
Okay. And we'll turn to the next agenda item, which calls for council comments. Ms. Ruther, do you have anything this evening?
I do not.
All right. Ms. Schaefer.
Yes, I have 2 items that I would like to share. The first is about the newest grant program coming out of the state to support the hospitality industry. Its acronym is CHIRP, which stands for Commonwealth Hospitality Industry Recovery Plan. It is not unlike our last round of Delco Strong money that was for our restaurants. However, this is more expansive. It's the whole hospitality industry, hotels, restaurants, bars, caterers, cafes, delis, the whole industry. We, Delaware County, have received $6.4 million for these businesses, which will be distributed through our Commerce Center. And it is posted as of today. So anyone who is interested in learning more about it, the web address is delcostrong at delcostrong.delcopa.org, and it has all of the parameters of the program on it. Applications will be accepted beginning March 15th, and the application period is open until April 16th. It is not first come, first serve, and it is for businesses that are 300 full-time employees or less and have had a minimum of 25% loss in gross receipts because of the pandemic. There are lots of other parameters that were actually set by the state, not by us, and they are all on the page of the website. And I encourage you, if you are in the hospitality industry, to get on the website and check it out and see if you are eligible. The grants are for up to $50,000.
And Ms. Schaefer, is there a link from our website to that as well?
If there's not today, I'm sure we could easily make that happen.
Okay, thanks.
The second thing I'd like to announce is that our economic development arm, the Commerce Center, which is the umbrella for a lot of our authorities, the Redevelopment Authority, the Economic Development Oversight Board, the Industrial Development Authority, and others, are engaging in a very comprehensive and introspective strategic planning process. And so over the next 6 or 7 months, all of the people involved in that, county employees, our businesses are all going to be invited to do some high-level thinking and sort of redesigning our approach to economic development in this county, on the premise that things have changed. Economic development right now, after this, coming out of this pandemic, is going to look a little different. And we are in an environment where our council is interested in being far more proactive in economic development than in the past history of the county. We have put out an RFP for a consultant to help run this process. And that is posted on the Commerce Center website, which is delcopa.org. So if you are interested in taking a look at that RFP, or if you know of a consultant business that would be interested, please pass that along. The bids are due May 10th, I believe. And there's a pre-bid meeting in mid-April, I think April 13th.
Thank you, Ms. Schaefer.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Madden.
Nothing more for me tonight.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Taylor.
Nothing more for me tonight either.
We are rolling. I'm going to pass as well. I've appreciate everybody being here, and if there's nothing further, we will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Be safe.
Everyone.
Good night.